Well, there's the countdown. After months of campaigning, debates, and commentary, we are now just hours away from Election Day, going head-to-head Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump.
But the race for the White House isn't the only thing on the line. There's also some key races here in Maine. That includes in Maine's Congressional District 2, where an electoral vote is up for grabs. Here to discuss what they're expecting ahead of Election Day is Democratic State Senator Mattie Daughtry and Maine GOP Chair Joel Stetkis. Thank you both so much for being here this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
So, Senator Daughtry, let's start with you. We actually had you here on ARC Maine a few months ago to talk about the presidential debate that was coming up and to hear your thoughts on that. How do you feel like the race has been since then, and what are your hopes and expectations?
I think since the debate, we've seen Kamala Harris be able to build on the enthusiasm and the message for America that she really set in that first debate. You know, in her closing speech, she laid out a optimistic, patriotic, and positive vision for our country. And what we've seen in the last few weeks and days and hours is, unfortunately, Donald Trump's campaign is really talking about how to divide us. He's really focusing on the negative and making it us versus them instead of finding a way to build up and have that common ground. And I think we're seeing it across our state and across our nation.
Joel, similar question for you. What are your views on either party's campaigns, and especially Donald Trump?
So I think one of the things that's interesting about this particular campaign is you actually have two candidates that have a record. And the American people, I think they're getting past the political talk and I'll just say it, some of the lies that are going on out there. And they can actually look at the record and see that under Donald Trump and under those economic policies that their lives were much better off. And to have somebody like Kamala Harris actually say that all of a sudden she's in support of some of the Trump policies after years and years of being completely against them, I think the American people are going to see past that.
Senator Daughtry, plenty of big issues have been discussed over the past few months, including economy, immigration, cost of living. Do you feel like Vice President Harris has done enough to answer those questions and maybe sway undecided voters?
I think she has, and I think the biggest thing that she has been doing has been listening. I mean, it's the same thing that our candidates do here in state. The biggest thing is to make sure that you keep an open mind. She's been very clear that, good ideas aren't Democrat or Republican ideas, they're American ideas. She's talked about building up her cabinet to make sure she has folks from all different walks of life. And I think we've seen that she's the one with a plan. She's the one talking about doing the first ever national ban on price gouging, meaningful pathways to home ownership, and things that really matter to people's everyday bottom line. She's thinking about Americans and our daily costs, while Trump and his advocates are really talking about, tax cuts for the wealthy and really pushing an agenda that doesn't look out for folks like us.
What do you think's been the #1 issue for people that you're hearing from on the ground with your finger on the pulse when it comes to people that support Trump?
It's returning the American dream back to the people. It's amazing how, whether it's in this state of 6 years of Democrat control, them running everything, or, the Biden-Harris regime and the things that they're doing now, all of a sudden they're going to change what they've been doing to make Americans' lives better, which is evidence that they know that what they've done has not worked. And the American people want change, and I believe tomorrow they're going to make a big change.
According to polls, women voters are more likely to back Harris and men are more likely to back Trump. Either of you could answer this. Why do you think that is? And what impact do you think abortion rights and the overturning of Roe v. Wade could have?
I'll jump in. I think, there's a lot at stake, and people see the difference is believing in an individual who stated clearly that she believes in a woman's right to choose, because we know that politicians do not have any right to be making those decisions for Americans, and that people should be able to make that decision about their own reproductive health with themselves and with their doctor. And I think when we're seeing, the record amount of women that are turning out, it's because it's not just about gender. It's about Americans saying that enough is enough. There is more that, unites us than divides us. I mean, Joel and I actually serve together, and while we might not agree on everything, we certainly have a lot more common ground than we have what pits us against each other. So I think people are really looking for a positive message, and they're looking for someone who's going to look out for their liberty and their American dream, like we were just talking about, but their ability to control their own body. And I think that's why we're seeing women and hopefully, all Americans rushing to the polls.
Yeah. Why do you think the gender gap?
I think the evidence is clear that the gender gap as far as voting goes, I think depending on the part of the country and the part of the state that you're in, I know the vast majority of the women and men that I know are, they're looking for a change in their futures, in their kids' futures. They're really upset with energy prices being so high. They're really upset that their adult children are still living at home and don't have the opportunity to go out and purchase their own home based on the Democrat policies that have been put in place for years now, that increased electric rates and grocery prices, housing prices, interest rates, taxes, all of those things. Those are the things that we're hearing over and over and over. And of course, the Democrats want to distract from that because they're the ones that have put those policies in place and caused those problems.
There are some key local issues on the ballot tomorrow. How do you see the battle for Maine's 2nd Congressional District going?
I think we'd both agree it's a very tight race that, everyone is working hard on both sides of the aisle to be able to, push it through. I know Representative Jared Golden, he and his team are not taking anything for granted and are really working hard to connect with folks. And I'm also grateful to see people paying attention to Maine and really working to understand that, we have to, get people who connect and really, Maine's a unique place. And I think, the 2nd Congressional District race is a really good example of that.
Speaking of that, not just, we're racing for this seat in the House, but also this is an electoral vote that's so important too, because this could come down to one vote. So talk about the significance and how important the folks in Lewiston, Augusta, and North feel about this.
Yeah, so it is very important to us as Mainers, to be relevant when it comes to the, the presidential election. But, getting back to CD2, the people of Maine, especially those of us in the more rural areas of the state, we're not happy with politicians that go to Washington, D.C., they do one thing and then they come back to Maine and say that they did something else. Or we elect them to go to Washington, D.C. to support our values, and they actually vote against them, like what Jared Golden has done. And what we've seen, which is really interesting, because as a multi-term incumbent in Congress and have a relatively unknown in Austin, Ontario, come up and challenge him and actually be ahead of him in the polls at this stage of the game, really shows that Maine people want somebody that thinks like them and will actually represent them and not go to Washington, D.C. And do something other than what they want them to do.
Finally, what would your big message be to voters heading to the polls tomorrow?
I would say, look to vote for whom's going to match your values and your mission. But I think the biggest thing I'm really, focusing on, both myself and that I'm hearing at doors, is that I feel like in this election, whether it's Representative Golden's race, whether it's the legislature, whether it's our presidential race, it's feeling increasingly less about being Democrat versus Republican. I mean, look at how many Democrats are supporting Vice President Harris. It really is about, those who have a message that others, us versus them, that divides and conquers with fear without actually having a meaningful message while pointing fingers, or those of us who say that things are hard. We want to do this together. Do we believe in a community? Do we believe in a positive, optimistic message for the future? And those people that we know are looking out for us as a whole and are willing to have those conversations versus, those who don't have that. I think it really is summed up by the difference that Vice President Harris says that on day one, Donald Trump will have an enemies list, and on day one, she has a to-do list.
And?
So, so here at home in the state of Maine, what we've been hearing, at the doors from voters for several months now is they want the American dream back within their reach. Under 6 years of Democrat one-party rule in Augusta and Democrats running the vast majority of the government in Washington, D.C., it's evident that those policies, especially those woke policies, they're not working. They're making their lives more difficult, and the futures of their kids don't look as bright as what they should be. So, we feel really confident that the voters are going to look towards Republicans to return common sense and some fiscal sanity back to state government and federal government, and hopefully we can, start rebuilding a Maine that everybody can afford.
Thank you so much, both of you, for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.